Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started with event evaluations. Let's start answering one vital question. Why are evaluations so important? Well, it's simple. In the words of Zig Ziglar, when you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. You can't change when you can't see. And also you can't change what you cannot measure. You do an event and at the end you have no idea how it went because you haven't asked the attendees, volunteers, vendors, or sponsors what is their take. What do they have to say? You will be surprised how much valuable information you get from them. Could make the difference between an event with empty seats and one that you get praised because year after year it gets better. Whether you're planning your monthly event or the biggest annual conference for your organization, this information is vital for you. Let's start by saying how you create a smart event evaluation. I know in previous sessions that you have learned about SMART goals. That's great because you always start with your goal in mind, with the end in mind. SMART goals, as you know, are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Let's take this concept a little bit further and apply it to event evaluations. You have to set your goals, you have to measure your goals, adjust them, because in events, things change rapidly. So as you start planning and executing your event, your goals might look a little bit different. Then reason them and pick a different goal if you have to, and then time them. For example, how much recruitment are you going to do in your next event so you can end with X amount of members at the end of the year? That's a really good way to apply all the layers of SMART event goals. So how do you do this? How do you establish your event goals? Well, that really depends on the type of event that you're planning. Here are some examples. For example, if you are planning a weekly meeting or a monthly meeting for your organization, you are going to really measure your goals in terms of attendance, because you want people not only to increase the amount of meetings that they're attending, but that they keep coming. If you're planning, for example, a community event, your measurement will probably be your social media work growth, your awareness of the cause for which you're doing this community event. If you're planning a fundraiser, well, basically will be to stay in budget, but also get a financial return on your investment. If you're doing a fundraiser, you're going to invest money to get more money. So you are going to have that as your principal goal and then create an evaluation around that goal. If your event is a rally or a promotional event or a marketing event, you want to measure the engagement, that the tactics that you are using are appropriate to increase their engagement between your attendees and the event. If you are planning an annual conference, probably your goals are going to be around retention. How many of your members, after coming to their annual conference, are staying within the organization? If it's a sponsorship, how many people are you recruiting for your organization due to that sponsorship? Or if it's an educational event, then how is your content quality? How is it getting better? How's the variety of it? In order to establish realistic goals or SMART goals that we just saw, you need to be able to measure each one of these categories. So I'll recommend that as you think about your next evaluation, that you download or print the worksheet that I have attached to this segment, so you can think about the type of event that you are going to plan, and then depending on that type of event, you can go back to this slide and analyze what is the main goal of that meeting or event. What will make that meeting or event successful? Depending on what's the answer to that question, then you will start thinking about questions that will allow you to determine and allow you to ask the right questions. I'm going to give you a couple helpful tips. I've been doing this for over 10 years. So I have learned a thing or two. First, the first mistake that I see people when they are organizing events is that they only survey the attendees. I will say you are ready to change that. You have to survey everyone. You will be surprised the information that you can get from your volunteers, for example, if you have volunteers to your event, from your sponsors, from the committee that organized the event. You have to survey each person. And you in your worksheet, you are going to see that you're asked about who is this specific evaluation is targeting, because the questions are going to be different depending who you are targeting. Let me give you an example. If you are surveying your speakers, you want to ask them about their experience as a speaker for your event. Depending on what they say, you're going to use that information to look for speakers that have the same quality of content, or maybe to change the way that you are selecting those speakers. If you ask your volunteers, then you want to ask them about the communication, which is very important, the quality of the training that you gave your volunteers, and how was their experience to assess if you do the same things, if you're going to get the same amount of volunteers or even more. So it's important that you survey everyone and you create a specific survey for each one of the stakeholders at your event. Second, another helpful tip, test new tactics and old tactics. For example, if you're introducing a new caterer to your event, you want to make sure that people enjoy the food. So you are going to include in your event evaluation questions about the quantity and quality of the food. This will allow you to determine if it's time to stick with the same vendor or change for somebody else. Or maybe this vendor is costing you a little bit more money, but you have so much great feedback that it's worth paying for this vendor, so people keep coming. You will be surprised what people do for great food. Also, test your old tactics. Are you still doing the event in the same way over and over again? The most important element for people to come back to an event is to give them what they want. So it's important that the evaluation, not only you test the new, that you also test the old. Because maybe the way you're doing things right now with your vendors, with your content, with the flow of the event, even with the location of the event, people maybe outgrow these tactics and you need to implement new ones. So make sure that your survey or your evaluation has a combination of new tactics and old tactics. 3, keep ranges tight. What does that mean? If you are doing an evaluation that is quantitative, meaning that you're going to give them numbers to evaluate the effectiveness of your tactic, keep them tight. Don't give them a range from 1 to 10, for example. Why? Because most people naturally will go to the 5. And 5 gives you nothing. You really don't know if they loved it or if they hate it. Most people, when they hate something or event, when they feel strongly against something, will give you a solid 1. And if they loved it, will give you a solid 10. You're going to make that decision easier for them if you give them a range from 1 to 4. They're either going to go to 1, which they have to be extremely dissatisfied, or 4, which will be the highest rank when they're very happy. Most of them will not pick 2 or 3 because it's right in the middle and it's very hard to just be in that neutral space with a tight range. So make sure that you don't give them that many options in the range, just 1 to 4, so they can give you a more accurate response, which is what you want. Timing is everything. Make sure that you allocate time within your event to get proper feedback. Why? Because the best feedback is the one that is given right away when it's fresh in their minds. For example, if you are going to do an evaluation, which I recommend for the speakers of your event, make sure that between sessions, there's always enough time for them to fill out the application, whether electronically, if you're using an application, for example, or the old-fashioned pen and paper. Don't disregard that. It might be out of fashion, but it does give you the answers right away. And it's something that people quickly can execute right after the speaker have spoken. If you send this evaluation after the event, they might have forgotten which specific speaker are you asking about. So time is everything. Same with if you have an event that has sponsors or vendors, you want them to evaluate the event they are the most excited when they're just experiencing the event. So make sure that you allocate enough staff and enough time to deliver these evaluations to them so they can fill them out right away. That doesn't mean that you cannot send an email later with your event evaluation. But it's very important that you allocate time within the event, and maybe you reinforce it with a post email for those that maybe left early and they didn't have a chance to do it during the event. Another tip is like be very specific in your questions. I won't recommend to and ask questions like, what did you think of the event? Is too broad. Be really specific about what you want to know. And this is going to be determined by the goals that you established earlier in your analysis, by your SMART goals. So make sure that you set this goal, make it specific, and then make it measurable, right? It's a SMART goal. So you are going to ask questions like, what do you think about the duration of the sessions? What do you think about the timing of the sessions, right? So you're being very specific of what you want to measure. The more specific you are, the better answers you're going to get that would allow you to realize if your goal, whether it's financial gain, whether your goal is recruitment or retention, it's met. So make sure that you are very specific in your questions. Next step, double up. Sometimes you ask one question and you want to know more than just what the question is asking. When I refer to that, is you can use your evaluation to measure other elements that will allow you to plan better for future events. Let me give you an example. You want to use your evaluation to ask about the venue, the food, the speakers, the flow of the event, but you also want to use your evaluation to get important data like demographics. How old is your audience? What's their the gender, the primary gender that attends your conference or your event? What is their profession? What do they do? How much money they make? All this data is extremely important because if you want to provoke a change, which is one of the results of the evaluation that we'll talk about later, it's very important that you know who's actually filling the seats and what is it that they want and like. Because if tomorrow you want to change the demographics of your event, how can you do that if you don't know exactly what's the demographics that you have now and why are they there? So make sure that you use your evaluations with a double purpose. One, to achieve that goal, to measure that goal that you established earlier in this process, but also to get valuable data of who is in the event and why are they in the event. So you can ask a specific question like, what motivates you to come to this event? And then give them options, which gets me to the next topic, which is variety is key. Make sure that you ask more than one type of questions. Not every question needs to be a multiple choice. Not every question needs to be a scale from 1 to 4. Not every question needs to be open-ended, because the issue with open-ended questions is that they take some time to respond, and people live in a world where they want to get things done quickly. So make sure that you have a variety of questions so the survey or the evaluation is interactive, and also it can be filled out in no more than 10 minutes. So what I like to include is a couple of questions that are ranged, 1 to 4, evaluate from least satisfied to most satisfied. Then a couple of questions on which I can specifically measure the effectiveness of the event or the effectiveness of my new tactics. And then a couple of questions that are open-ended, or maybe just one question is open-ended, which is, I always include this, so make sure that you don't miss it. How can we improve? If you gave me more than a very satisfied rating, make sure that you ask them, what can we do better? Trust me, somebody that is not satisfied will give you a very long list of things that you can do better, which is great because they're telling you what they want. And if they were very satisfied, then they will also give you comments about what worked for them and what made the event great. So you want to make sure that you have those 3 types of questions. The ones that will give you a range from 1 to 4, the ones that have multiple selection, and the ones that have open-ended questions. So moving on, What do you do finally with these results? Now you did all these steps, right? You determine what kind of event you're doing, then you establish what's the main goal for that event, whether revenue, retention, social awareness, social media growth. And then you created a great evaluation using the worksheet attached to this segment, and you created some questions. So what are you going to do with the data? Well, the data should allow you to do one of three things: either eliminate a tactic that you have used in the event, change something about the event. For example, like I said before, change the demographics, or improve something at the event. Maybe this new caterer that you introduced to the event is not the type of food that people enjoyed. Maybe the venue was too small or people found it confusing to navigate. Then you want to make a change in venue. So really feedback, that's why it grows your impact, allows you to make the changes, the delegation or elimination process, and improve your event. When you put together these three elements and you apply it to every single event that you plan, to every single person involved, whether it be attendees, sponsors, vendors, or volunteers, you will end with enough information to make a great event that people want to come back to, that people want to volunteer for and work for you, and that people want to sponsor. I enjoy teaching this class to you. I hope you find it helpful. Thank you very much and see you next time.